Okay guys, we are here to check out the short essay question that you have to work on. You're actually going to write this, but I am here to outline it for you, and hopefully the outline helps you get to a place where you're ready to write it. So this first page, we've seen it a million times before, but this is going to be your question here. And your first bullet point, remember, describe the historical context. Yeah, you know what's coming next. What is the historical context? That is the background. And what else? Outside information. So what do you know about these documents? What happened before? What happened after? Everything that is surrounding what you're seeing in the documents. Then you're going to identify and explain a relationship between these two documents. It's either going to be a cause and effect, a similarity or difference, and turning point. Remember, if we choose this one, we are doing both of them. And the same goes with this one, both a cause and an effect. Okay, and I won't torture you, but you know that these definitions are here in case you want them. If there's something that you need clarification on, then you go ahead and read through these. When you go to pick a relationship, maybe you want to go to types of relationship and see what they mean. Make sure it checks through with what you've chosen. So when we look at this, how many paragraphs do you think we're going to have? Remember, the setup of a short essay, in order to get the highest score possible, we do want to start with an intro. This is going to be that 2, maybe 3 sentences, just introducing the topic of the docs, and then the relationship that you chose. That introduction is to really say, this is what I'm going to talk about in this short essay. It's going to be very quick, very concise. We want to make sure that it's just a couple sentences. 3 really is the max here. You're not writing a whole paragraph. Remember, this is very time sensitive. And then you've got 1 paragraph, and that's going to be your historical context about both documents. Remember, you're referencing both documents at all times in this one. It does not say pick one. No, it says both. And this is just going to be, maybe 5 to 6 sentences. Again, very short. This is a short essay. And then you've got paragraph 2. This is going to be all about the relationship between the docs. So you want to define it and explain using evidence. And you want to use both documents again. Remember, both of them. There's only 2, so you've got to use 2. And then you're going to tie this off with a conclusion. In the conclusion, again, 2, at max 3, and I really stress this, it could be 1 really killer sentence. It is short, and you just want to close up your ideas. Restate the topic and relationship. It's really just we're done. So remember, you want to give yourself, when you're writing this out, all of this together, not the planning, because we're doing the planning together, you want to give yourself 20, maybe 25 minutes to write. Okay? That's a maximum, because we want to pace ourselves. We want to make sure that we're doing this as if we were going to do it in the Regents. Okay, so you've got a little outline there. You know what you're doing when you're writing. let's look at these documents. Okay, so who do we have here? We've got FDR, we've got the Supreme Court, and what automatically should come to mind? Court packing plan. Now, let's think about it. When did the court packing plan happen? Well, it happens during the Great Depression. The Supreme Court was declaring the New Deal unconstitutional. Using what power? Oh yeah, that's right. Judicial review. So what is the court packing plan? That's when FDR tried to increase the number of justices. I don't know what is happening with my pen right there. Let's try this again. Justices. And the reason he was doing this, remember, was because they were declaring parts of his New Deal unconstitutional. They were saying, hey, you are using way too much power. That's creating a problem. And he says, if you're going to stand in my way, then I'm just going to change the Supreme Court. But remember, the problem that we have here is checks and balances, as well as the separation of powers. It's supposed to be okay that the Supreme Court was declaring parts of the New Deal unconstitutional. It's supposed to be powers separated. The president should not be able to just shove everything through. He's trying to disrupt that, trying to do what's best for the country here. So the Supreme Court is your umpire. Roosevelt is your baseball player. I don't know a whole lot about baseball, but I know that the umpire is supposed to make calls, and sometimes people don't really like him. So when we look at the president, what he's doing here, he's saying, listen, I don't like your decisions. From now on, you're going to have to work with someone who can see things my way. Roosevelt is saying he is going to add justices to the Supreme Court that would approve the New Deal. He's saying, you're not doing what I need you to do, so I'm going to put people on the Supreme Court that will listen to me. And you can see here it says more New Deal laws. That's what he's trying to hit. And down at the bottom, you can see the other bats that are New Deal acts that were declared unconstitutional. We know here we have the NRA, which was dealing with industry. We have the AAA, which was dealing with agriculture. Remember, this was trying to pay farmers not to farm. Okay, so we know a few of those that are written down there. And we can see on some of them it's written out, like they're out. They were already declared unconstitutional, is what that means. So let's go down here and see what we have. First, we have to look at the source, the Columbus Dispatch in 1937. So we know it's a newspaper in 1937, which is during the Great Depression. So the setting here, we have FDR as president. We know that the country is in the Depression. we know that to solve the Depression, FDR is trying to put the New Deal legislation in place. For our outside information, we have a variety of things that we can talk about, but I want to write down two comes before three, right? I want to write down three major plans that we have here. So we have FDR, who is a Democrat. And what did the Democrats believe the government should be doing? That's right, hands on federal government. And how is he doing that? That's going to be with the New Deal. We know that two of the programs that we saw in there, we had the NRA and the AAA. Remember, the NRA is the National Recovery Act, and then the AAA is the Agriculture Adjustment Act, and both of these were declared unconstitutional by the Supreme Court, and that's an example of checks and balances, trying to make sure that FDR isn't taking too much power, he isn't going too far, and he's not very happy with that. And then we know what this is called. This is called the court packing plan, where FDR tried to change the number of justices on the Supreme Court to get the New Deal passed. And we want to make sure that we have those three pieces of information in our short essay somewhere along the lines of mentioning why FDR was doing what he's doing. This is the why. And then these are specifically the what he was doing. So that clarifies a little bit. And all of this information here, this is your paragraph 1. This is paragraph 1. All of this that we just wrote down in here. Okay? Now, do you have to write every single piece of information in that paragraph? No. You pick and choose whatever is going to build your argument the best. But this information should help you get there. Alrighty, let's look at the second document. Remember, we want to look at everything in the document. First, we've got to look at the source. We know that this is coming from Roosevelt, so it is the President, FDR, speaking. So he is telling us, and up here it says he's presenting a proposal to encourage cooperation between the branches of government. So he's speaking about the branches working together. So we know what this is going to be about before we even start talking about it. But let's go ahead and read this together and see what happens. Last Thursday, I described the American form of government as a three-horse team provided by the Constitution to the American people so that their field might be plowed. The three horses, of course, are the three branches of government: the Congress, the executive, and the courts. Two of the horses are pulling in unison today. And he says the third is not. Those who have intimated or suggested that the President of the United States is trying to drive the team overlook the simple fact that the President, as chief executive, is himself one of the three horses. What is my proposal? It is simply this. Whenever a judge or justice of any federal court has reached the age of 70 and does not avail himself to the opportunity to retire on a pension, the new member shall be appointed by the President then in office, with the approval required by the Constitution of the Senate of the United States. Oh my goodness, do we have a lot to unpack here. But first, let's do our setting. So what the heck is he talking about? He's talking about the court packing plan as a part of the New Deal. So this is FDR saying, we know who isn't working with us. We're going to make them work with us in order to solve the problem of the Great Depression. So that's our setting. The court packing plan, a part of the New Deal to solve the problem of the Great Depression. So let's talk about what he was actually saying in here. So he's making the people aware that the president is a part of the three branches, that three-horse team. The president is a part of it. And he's saying right now 2 branches are working together. The Supreme Court is not. And that makes the Supreme Court kind of sound like they're not a team player, that they're the ones that are holding us back. And in order to solve that problem, he tells us, this is what I'm going to do. This is the court packing plan. He says, once a Supreme Court justice or any justice on any federal court gets to the age of 70, if he or she doesn't take their retirement, then a new member is going to be appointed by the president in office. Yes, we'll still go with the Senate approval, which is an example of checks and balances. So it's not just the president saying, these are all the people that I want on the Supreme Court. But he's saying, now there's an age limit. I'm going to make sure that we see people cycling out of the court. We also can put in here that we wanted to increase the number of justices from 9 to 15. And again, we want to know the answer of why is FDR doing this. Well, he's doing this because the Supreme Court was not approving all of the legislation of the New Deal. And FDR says, if you're not going to work with us, then you are against us. And I can't have an enemy in the Supreme Court. Therefore, I am going to push to change the Supreme Court so they become in line. Because the goal here was to stop the Depression. That's the goal of FDR. And his goal is not being able to be met because of the Supreme Court. So he's going to make sure that we do this. And this doesn't get passed. We can put that down. The court packing plan does not get passed. But the and this is, I promise, is the last thing I'm going to put down, the effect of this on FDR is his approval rating goes down. Remember, after this, people look at FDR and say, whoa, maybe you are just a little bit controlling. Maybe you are taking a little bit more power than you should be. You're interrupting that checks and balances that we talk about. And they start to disapprove. Not enough to vote him out of office. We know that that does not happen. But enough. So now you have the task of actually taking that information and choosing what you want to do with it. You can choose turning point, you can choose similarity difference, you can choose cause and effect. It doesn't matter, whichever one your gut is telling you to do. I am going to write a sample introduction. If you want to write your own, you don't want to follow this, you can stop the video now, because I am going to I'm going to choose one of these. So stop the video now if you don't want to see me writing the introduction. In which case, if you're stopping the video, feel free to email me with any questions. If you're still there, if you're sticking with me, I am going to give you an introduction that you can use for this. So let's quickly go back and look at what we said we would do in our introduction. So we said that we were going to write 2 to 3 sentences, we introduce the topic, and we state what relationship we're going to do. Sounds pretty easy. Now, to me, when I look at these two documents, I see cause and effect. And the topic of these documents is FDR and the New Deal, with an emphasis on the court packing plan. So that's our topic. Now, let's generate a little sentence here. So, President, that's not how you spell president. Franklin D. Roosevelt attempted to pull the nation out of the Great Depression by passing New Deal legislation. The Supreme Court used judicial review to declare some of that legislation unconstitutional, leading FDR to take action against the court. The two documents seen here illustrate this cause and effect relationship. Boom. So we have President Franklin D. Roosevelt attempted to pull the nation out of the Great Depression by passing New Deal legislation. The Supreme Court used judicial review to declare some of that legislation unconstitutional, leading FDR to take action against, sorry I spelled that wrong, against the court. The two documents seen here illustrate this cause and effect relationship. So the cause was, this will be the last thing I write, then you're on your own. You do not write this in yours. The cause is the Supreme Court declaring New Deal legislation unconstitutional. The effect then was the court packing plan. And you've got plenty of outside information to use with this. You can pinpoint the specific legislation here, and you can use document 2 pretty heavily here. But good luck. Remember, give yourself that 20 to 25 minutes to write this whole thing. You really want to keep those paragraphs short, no more than 5, maybe 6 sentences a piece, short, sweet, to the point. Go back and look at your outline for a little bit more help, and feel free to email me with any questions that you have along the way.